Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Now I would like to apologize for not really making a lot of videos over the last couple of days after I made that e-power video, which well, people seem to like. Yeah, so basically the reason why I didn't make any more videos is I tried to make a second e-power, and that second e-power, like it was the other Zotac 580, I decided I didn't need it that much. I tried to make an e-power out of it, and this thing right here is defective, and it killed the Pwm controller on that e-power. So yeah, the e-power ended up like this, because I was a bit upset that I put in several hours of work into that thing and had it not working out. So now we have my emotional outburst out of here. Let's talk about the thing that we actually care about in this video. Now, Christmas came and went, and I went through my inventory, so to say, and I decided that my sister, who did have a really old PC, could use some better components, and I picked out some stuff that I don't really use that she could have. Among that was my GTX 980 Ti Strix, which she now has, my old Darkbase 700 case, the RAM that I got with the i7 960, because she only had a single stick with 8GB, so I upgraded her to 16. And then I also gave her my Ryzen 5 1600, which she sadly can't use right now because she still needs a motherboard and RAM, and I don't have that, so yeah. And yeah, so she got my 980 Ti, and this was her old graphics card. This is a Palette Jetstream GTX 780, and I thought, well, if I get back into making videos after, well, it wasn't really a long pause, but I want to get back into the my routine again of making videos every couple of days. So yeah, this is her GTX 780 Jetstream, and it is better than reference. It is quite interesting, but it does have some flaws. So this is pretty similar to a 780 Ti. The only difference really is that the core here is a GK110 300B1 and not a 425B1. So this has 2300 something cores, not 2880. So you lose some CUDA cores on this. You still get 3GB of GDDR5 Hynix AFR in this case. And yeah, then let's just get into the VRM section of this card. Now this card, for its vCore VRM, does have what's Pwm Controller right over here. That is an NCP4208. We have seen that before on my 780 Ti Windforce. So this is an 8-phase controller made by On Semiconductor. And yeah, so we've got an 8-phase vCore here actually. So these upper two phases are memory, and then these 8 phases down here are core. And these phases use some power stages. I don't think you'll be able to see that, but these are from Fairchild Semiconductor. These are FDMF 6823s. These are 50 amp power stages in the day. Like, it's a bit confusing because on Semiconductor's website they say 45 amp, but the datasheet for them says 50 amp. So you can see here it's FDMF 6823C actually. But I'm gonna go by the datasheet and say this is a 50 amp power stage, and that means it's actually pretty good. So the thing with power stages is, like, in terms of efficiency, like 60, 70 and 90 amp power stages are more or less the same. 50 amps are worse than 60 amp power stages. So this is not the best you could get, but this is a card from 2013? 2012? I don't know. This released before the 780 Ti, and I know the 780 Ti came in 2013. So for the time, this was probably a really, really expensive power stage. And yeah, with 8 of these and 50, like theoretically 50 amps, you're never gonna run them at 50 amps actually, because at that point they're going to be uncoolable. But yeah, having 8 50 amp power stages, that's actually pretty nice, because I've recently seen a GTX 580 that used 8 40 amp power stages, and that was already, yeah, people were already impressed by that. So this is even better, because this is not a 580. This, I mean, if you push Kepler on liquid nitrogen, it's gonna consume a lot of power, but on ambient, this should consume less power and draw less current than a Fermi card. So this VRM, in terms of power handling, is really, really good actually. The only thing that I really want to complain about here is that the output filter is, you do get a lot of capacitors. These are 820 microfarad 2.5 volt capacitors, and then you get a couple multi-layer ceramics here. But yeah, so on the back side there's really nothing. So I'm really missing my SMD aluminum polymers, or maybe SMD tantalums even. So these, like, usually they're black, but in this case they're yellow. The reference PCB for, like, yeah, like a lot of 780 Ti PCBs use these, and they're not here on this card. And yeah, so like you do have all these CAN types, but I would really like to see if we could just have some SMD aluminum polymers. Like we have these 4 on the back of the core, but like that's, every card does that. And then we have these unpopulated pads for more of them, which these 3 might be memory. This one looks like it's gonna be core. So that's really the only thing I would complain about here, because the output filter could be better. And also the, it's a bit dusty. You see the memory chips don't really have that many capacitors behind them. There's not really that much capacitance for the memory chips as well, which could make memory overclocking worse. I've already pre-tested this card. I know where it overclocks to. I'm gonna get into that a bit later. But yeah, so in terms of capacitors, this card is a bit lackluster. But in terms of power stages, I really like this VRM. This VRM is really good. It might actually be better than my 780 Ti Windforce. Like that one has the same PWM controller. It also has an 8-phase with power stages. I don't know which power stages though. So yeah, this might have better, like a better VRM than the 780 Ti Windforce, though the Windforce does have a better output filter. So there's that. And let's also look into what PWM controller we have for memory. That's gonna be this one. That's an INA 3221. That's for power monitoring. This should be, this right here should be our, oh great, it's one of these rebranded Richtech controllers. So it says 0T equals FJ, and that's not gonna get you anywhere. There's a list of these identifiers somewhere around the internet that tells you what this means, because that's not the actual name of that controller. It might actually not be a Richtech one, but I think I've only seen Richtech controllers use these markings. And yeah, so there's a datasheet somewhere around that tells you what this is. But yeah, like it looks like a pretty standard, like it's gonna be a standard 2-phase controller with integrated drivers. So yeah, like our memory VRM is pretty basic. You see we just have 2 dual-line FETs. I think this might be just straight up the reference memory VRM, just kinda with different inductors. So yeah. And that would be pretty much it. What else can I say? I think the only other notable thing about this PCB is that we have these things right here, which they don't look like what fuses usually look like, but these should be fuses because this 970 here, which is also like both of these are made by Pallet, it used to have these things as well. I desoldered them here, and that one of them burnt out. So these are fuses. So we do have our PCIe and like a PCIe slot and our PCIe power cables fused. So if a major short would happen on the card, we do have protection against that, because these are gonna burn out before something worse happens. And I also just realized I forgot to mention this part. So this card does actually have some extreme overclocking features. The thing is just though, Pallet puts these things onto cards. I think there was a GTX 1060 they made, which their Bauer then bought, thinking it would do extreme overclocking. Then it turned out, well, it does have that thing on the PCB, but it's actually not doing anything because it's not hooked up. Oh, sorry, bumped the camera. But assuming this works, so we do have a OCP unlock, which disables overcurrent protection. We have OV unlock, which would enable overvoltage. Then we have a GPU, yeah, what is that actually? A GPU voltage read point. And then we have for VRAM, or I just call it memory, and PLL, we have read points and also VR, which I think stands for variable resistor, control points. I wonder why we're not getting a GPU control point. That sounds a bit weird, but yeah. So we do get control points for our memory and PLL voltage. And PLL voltage, on ambient, you usually don't deal with this. PLL voltage is something for dry ice and liquid nitrogen, because messing with PLL can fix cold bugs. On ambient, this is not gonna do anything. So yeah, if this works, this card is gonna be really nice, and I might actually run this, like if I ever get an LN2 pod. If this works, I might actually run this card, because like I've said, I really like the VRM. And the other thing can be solved with cap mods. And then the other thing, this overvoltage unlock thing, which does like have the remnants of a sticker on it. The reason why we don't have a VR point for our GPU, this might be because like currently if you put the card in, it does not have voltage control. There is simply no voltage control on it in software. Like you enable voltage control in MS Afterburner, the voltage slider stays grayed out. And that's not because the voltage controller can't do it. My 780 Ti Windforce does have an NCP 4208 as well, and that one has working voltage control. So yeah, this, because usually what I've seen on my 780 Ti Matrix and GTX 580 Lightnings, they also have overvoltage unlock, which just gives you more voltage range, but this might actually mean that just like it unlocks, actually just unlocks overvoltage, which means by default it's just completely disabled and not just like at a lower voltage range like the other cards do. So enabling this is probably gonna, like, yeah, this might enable our voltage slider. Or this might also just extend the voltage range and I have to do something else to get my voltage slider working. Don't know, can't know until I try it. But yeah. So I actually really like this PCB. I kinda wish it was a 780 Ti, because then I could run it in SLI with my Matrix. Because my Zotac 780 Ti kinda sucks, and my Windforce, well, that one was dead for a long time. I brought it back and it has degraded from me bringing it back, and I don't really want to run it because I feel it's gonna die again. So yeah. But as it stands, this is a normal 780, so there's not gonna be SLI on this. But if these control points work, I'm gonna be really, really happy, because this would be a really, really good card to mess with. And yeah, so now let's get into what this overclocks to. So without any voltage control, I've actually not checked what voltage this runs at. I should have checked stock voltage. I guess it's gonna be around 1.15 or 1.2 volts, somewhere in that range. and the core at that voltage does 1251 megahertz, like reliable. I think it, like I've actually not tested what the maximum clock of it is, where it just passes Firestrike. Like it starts artifacting at over 1241. But yeah, like it seems to be still be running, but it's just gonna artifact at higher clocks. I have not tested how high it goes. Guess it's gonna be in the 1280 megahertz range, where it would still like pass but artifact. Yeah, so like this core is not really that impressive. If you like, from what I know, like my 780 Ti's do better. Like even my Zotac card, which is just straight up a reference PCB with, which is like a much worse VRM than this, and also a worse cooler. Like the cooler that this comes with, like this is the fin stack. You get 5 heat pipes. It's a rather substantial fin stack. Actually, don't know if this is a vapor chamber. I don't think it is. You also get like a pretty nice base plate. The only problem is like the VRM thermal pad like kind of disintegrates. But yeah, you get a nice base plate, and then your fans are also like, there's a pretty big fan in the middle. Like this heatsink is performing pretty good. I think it's still gonna lose to the Windforce one, because the Windforce one has one extra heat pipe, and it does have a more dense fin stack. But yeah, like this heatsink is performing pretty great. Yeah, so if I get voltage control on this core might actually do better. And where was I? Yeah, I was at Zotac. So the Zotac card, which has a worse heatsink and a worse PCB than this, did 1260, and I think on the Kingpin BIOS I was able to get it to 1280 stable. Then my Windforce, before it was degraded, did 1320, which, well, that's just a really good core. And then my Matrix did 1260 or also 1280, I don't remember it really. So this does 1240, which, yeah, not that great, but that could totally be because I don't have voltage control yet. Like, for all what I know, this might run at 1 volt stock, and then it's gonna be really good. Like the AC quality on this is better than 57%. It's pretty average, I would say. But AC quality doesn't always mean that much. Because like my Zotac card, which does clock better than this, does have a really, really low AC quality. Yeah, and then for memory overclocking, I was actually surprised to see that 780s come with a 3 GHz or like 6 GHz effective clock memory stock. Because 780 Ti's come with 3.5 or 7 GHz effective stock. Some even come factory overclock with 3.6 or like 7.2 effective. So yeah, I can tell you that this reaches stock 780 Ti levels and not much more. So you can punch in a 500 MHz offset, which brings you to 7 GHz effective or 3.5 in MSI Afterburner, or 1750 MHz in GPU-Z. More than that does artifact and crash. So yeah, it is Hynix AFR. This is, what is this, 2 gigabit? Yeah, this is 2 gigabit. So I haven't messed with, like, I've messed with 1 gigabit AFR, which is awful, but 2 gigabit AFR, this is the first time I work with that, because, well, all my other 780 Ti's are also Hynix, but I don't think these are AFR, I think those are MFR. And those overclock a lot, actually. I think all of these are capable of 4 gigahertz, or 8 gigahertz effective. So yeah, maybe, like, putting more capacitors on it, maybe overvolting it, would help the memory. Yeah. So I actually really like this this PCB. Like, it's not something super crazy, but it is just nice. It is just very, very decent. The heatsink is good. The VRM is very powerful, and assuming these things work, this is gonna be a lot of fun. So, like, you don't even, like, if this works, you don't even need a datasheet for the controller, you just put a potentiometer there, and you're done. So yeah. And the video is getting to, we've already crossed 20 minutes. So yeah, there's nothing really that I want to talk about now. I think I'm done with everything. So yeah, thank you all for watching, hope you enjoyed. And until we see each other next time. And yes, there's going to be more ePower 980 content. Just gotta do it. So yeah, see ya.